So, welcome to the 2021 Spring Nembutsu Seminar, sponsored by the Honolulu and Oahu Honganji Councils and the Office of Buddhist Education. I'm Piper Toyama from Jikoen Honganji, and I will be your host this morning. This seminar picks up where we left off after the first successful virtual fall 2020 presentation by Bishop Harada. We are grateful to have him to continue sharing his wisdom. As a testament to the success of Zoom seminars and your enthusiasm, I'm happy to announce that we even have registrants from temples outside of the Honganji Mission of Hawaii. We have members from not only Hawaii, but from the mainland and Canada as well. So this information confirms the reach that virtual education has. We will open this seminar with an aspiration delivered by the charismatic and talented resident minister of Mililani and Ewa Honganji, the Reverend David Fujimoto.
Morning, everyone. Please join me in a moment of reflection with your palms put together in Gassho. From the readings in the Jodo Shinshu teachings, the Nembutsu of gratitude, Amida Buddha sympathizes, laments, and works to save us as we are. The salvation, according to Jodo Shinshu, is determined by a single-heartedly believing in the working of Amida Buddha. The Nembutsu is the rejoicing voice that comes from the joy of the being who is being saved. Shinran Shonin says, just by reciting the Buddha's name frequently, one should feel gratitude to the universal vow of great compassion. Amida Buddha saves us and does not ask for anything in return. This immeasurable benevolence is a great blessing that we can never repay. We are grateful for this benevolence and express our thankfulness by simply reciting the Nembutsu. This is the Nembutsu of gratitude. A person given the joy of this salvation should recite the Nembutsu Namo Amida Butsu as an expression of gratitude for this kindness. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida. Namo.
Thank you, Reverend Fujimoto. I'd like to now introduce our speaker. Bishop Reverend Marvin Harada of Orange County Buddhist Church began his tenure as Bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America and Superintendent of the Honganji Ha North America District on April 1st, 2020. Reverend Harada has served at OCBC since 1986. He's been head minister of OCBC, supervising minister at Sacramento Betsuin and Vista Buddhist Church, and co-director of BCA's Continuing Buddhist Education Program. He graduated from the University of Oregon in Religious Studies, received an MA from the Institute of Buddhist Studies in Berkeley, and went on to study in Japan at Nishi Honganji Seminary called Chuo Bukkyo Gakuen, and at Ryokoku University, where he received an MA in Shin Buddhist Studies. To know Bishop Harada is to know a person of humility, common sense, and a spirituality grounded in living the challenges of everyday life. His wisdom addresses our needs in language we can all understand, and that is why he is our speaker at this seminar. Bishop Harada, you now have the main screen.
Allow me to take a moment to share my screen and get set up for the PowerPoint. Okay, can everyone see that on the screen okay and hear me okay? Okay. Well, first of all, allow me to say what an honor and privilege it is to be your speaker today. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to speak at numerous events in Hawaii, and one of the most memorable was this summer session at Buddhist Study Center some years ago, I really enjoyed that time there and meeting many of you that continue to get to see today over the years and ongoing friendships. So today we have a spring Nembutsu seminar uh, hosted by the Honolulu and Oahu districts. And I'd like to go right into my PowerPoint uh, on Buddhism and everyday life. So before we can discuss Buddhism in everyday life, we have to discuss what is Buddhism and have a basic fundamental understanding of what is Buddhism. So there's many ways to understand Buddhism. First of all, the most common way is that it's the teachings of the Buddha, the teachings of the historical Shakyamuni Buddha. But another important way to understand Buddhism is that it's the teachings to become Buddha, the teachings to become Buddha, to become awakened. This is another short phrase that expresses what is the essence of Buddhism. Ten mei kai go, 4 Chinese characters. Ten means to turn, mei means delusion, kai means to open up, and go means enlightenment. Ten mei kai go, to transform delusion into enlightenment. This is what is Buddhism. So this word mei or delusion is how you write to be lost in regular Japanese or Chinese. You know, if you're driving in the city and you don't have a GPS, you might go, gee, I'm lost. In Japanese, they say, mayotteru, I'm lost. So literally, to be unawakened, unenlightened means to be lost. So I think, thank goodness for GPS. Thank goodness for GPS, because before we had GPS, we had to ask for directions. And I don't know about other men, but I think as a whole, men hate to ask for directions. I don't know how many times I've been driving with my wife and we're looking for, a restaurant or something that we've been to before. And she says, do you need directions? No, 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 no. I know where it is. I know where it is. So we drive and it's around here somewhere. I know it's around here somewhere. We're driving around and around about 15, 20 minutes. And she says, why don't you stop and ask for directions? Oh, no, no, no. I know where it is. It's around here somewhere. We drive for another 15 or 20 minutes. Finally, okay, I'm lost. I stop at a gas station. And then I tell my wife, why don't you go in and ask the gas station guy where we are? So we men, we hate to ask for directions, but we're lost. So Buddhism says we are so lost in delusion, we don't even realize we're lost. Just like when we're driving and we hate to admit that we're lost. That's how deluded we are. So choosing the path of Buddhism means to, first of all, admit that we're lost in life, meaning we have no direction in life. But once we admit we are lost, now we can begin to find direction in life. So choosing to follow the path of Buddhism gives us a true direction in life. We discover a path out of delusion. Now there's a path. Now there's a direction. So the Pure Land is expressed as being in the West. But this is a metaphor. This is a metaphor to give us direction in life. The Pure Land being in the West gets us faced in the direction towards truth. We're on the path. We're headed towards the world of enlightenment. We have turned away from the world of delusion. So the Pure Land being in the West doesn't mean it's literally there in the West, but it is a metaphor to give us that direction, to turn towards truth or enlightenment. Shinran Shonin, his teachings are fundamental Buddhism. This is an expression of his Nembutsu Jobutsu Kore Shinshu. Through the Nembutsu, we become Buddha. This is Shinshu. This is Jodo Shinshu. Jodo Shinshu is Buddhism, just like Tenmei Kaigo or the path to become Buddha. Shin Buddhism is the path to become Buddha, but through the Nembutsu, through the Nembutsu. So you might think, well, I have never thought about becoming Buddha. That thought has never come to me. But I would argue that point and say that every person at some point in their life aspires to become Buddha, but you just didn't know it. Have you ever had any of these thoughts? Isn't there more to life than this? All I do is work, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep. Have you ever had the question, what is the meaning of my life? Well, those questions are a reflection of our aspiration to become Buddha, to awaken to our true self. But we don't know it as such. To have any of those questions is really the wish to become Buddha, the wish to awaken to our true self. I'd like to share a book that was recently published by one of our minister's assistants, Jim Pollard. The title of the book is Let This Be Known. This is the cover. He just recently published it. It was so surprising. One day, Jim just said to me, well, Sensei, I've been working on this book about my thoughts on Shin Buddhism. I go, you have? So for over the course of several years, he's been writing this book. It's a wonderful book, and I would encourage you to read it. I sent Reverend David the link to where you could order this book. But this is from Jim's book, from his preface. He writes, simply stated, to follow the Buddhist path is to seek liberation from meaninglessness. Liberation from meaninglessness. In traditional terms, meaninglessness is samsara, the world of delusion, and liberation is nirvana, the world of awakening. So this is from his preface, his book. I thought it was a wonderful way of expressing what is Buddhism, to seek liberation from meaninglessness. So we all want to live a meaningful life, a fulfilled life. That is what it means to seek awakening, liberation, or to become Buddha, to seek meaning and fulfillment in one's life. So every human being wants to live a fulfilled, meaningful life. Every person wants to live their true, sincere life, to awaken to their true self. And so that's the universal nature of Shin Buddhism, because every human being has that aspiration. And so we can show all people that Shin Buddhism is this universal teaching that stirs within the hearts of all people. But our everyday life might feel more like this, like the squirrel in the cage, where lots of activity, but we're not getting anywhere, going around and around. So we might relate to this. We might feel like we're like a squirrel in a cage. So are we much different than the squirrel in the cage? We might work 30 or 40 years for a company and wonder, where has my life gone? Have I just been a cog in the wheel of this huge corporation? What has been the meaning of my life? So finding something meaningful in one's life. I'd like to share a couple of true stories. The first is an OCBC member, the late Kent Hirohama. He was the taiko instructor for our beginners. So in our taiko group, we have one of the oldest taiko groups in the United States, and they're all volunteers. The instructors are people who've been in the group for a long time, and then they teach the rest of the group. So we have a beginning group, intermediate group, and more of an advanced group. And so Kent was an instructor in that group. So he taught the beginners, and my own daughter was one of his students when she started at the age of 10. Now she continues to play taiko in a professional taiko group. But Kent came down with cancer, and it was terminal cancer. And so I thought it might cheer him up if he saw some of the young people that he taught taiko to. He was in the hospital. He did not have too much longer to live. So I brought some of those young people, uh, four of his former students, to see him in the hospital. And it was an unforgettable experience for those young people. They were in tears, and they gathered around his bed, and he said, come here. He took all of their hands. He said, give me your hands. He took all of their hands, and he held their hands next to his heart. And he said, I'm here. I'm here. And this is where I will be with you in your heart and mind. Well, after the young people left, Kent shared with me that the most fulfilling thing that he did in life was to teach taiko to the beginners at OCBC. So he was able to die knowing that he had lived a fulfilled life. Knowing that he had lived a fulfilled life. And he had a regular job and other occupation, but that was not as fulfilling to him as teaching taiko. I'd like to share another story about a Boy Scout leader from another temple who was the Eagle Scout project advisor for decades, something like 40, close to 50 years. Mr. Y was the Eagle Scout advisor. But Mr. Y developed cancer later in his life. And one of the last Boy Scout that he advised for his Eagle Project shared this in our youth retreat that we had at the Jodo Shinshu Center. This is like 3 years ago when it was in person. And so Mr. Y was dying of cancer, but this Boy Scout still asked him to be the Eagle Scout advisor because all the other Eagle Scouts had done it. And he also, Mr. Y, insisted that he continue to do this. So he advised him, and the boy had his Eagle Scout project. Everything went well. Mr. Y attended the Eagle Scout project, but about a month after that, he passed away from his terminal illness. And so for this young Boy Scout, he felt terrible. He thought in a way that he had caused Mr. Y to die. He said, oh, I shouldn't have asked him. He spent all this time helping me on my project. He was ill. I shouldn't have asked him. And then he came to my Eagle project. He was there all day. What have I done? Maybe I caused him to die. This is how he felt. This is how he felt. But I said to him and to all the other young people at that service, I said, you know what? Maybe being an Eagle Scout project advisor, maybe that was the most fulfilling thing that Mr. Y did in his life. And you gave him the most fulfilling thing to complete before he ended his life. Maybe that's how Mr. Y felt. And I wouldn't doubt that that is how he felt, although he had another career and successful, but maybe the most fulfilling thing he did in his life was to help those Boy Scouts earn their Eagle Award. Shinran Shonin writes in his poems or his wasong, this is just a couple of, it's not the entire wasong, but he writes, of those who encounter the power of the primal vow, not one passes by in vain. Not one passes by in vain. Meaning, for someone who encounters the heart of the Buddha. Encountering the Buddha's vow, it means that your life does not pass by in vain, in meaninglessness. You are liberated from meaninglessness. You find deeply meaningful and fulfilling life. And that's what Shin Buddhism has to offer us. So, in order to relate Buddhism to your everyday life, you have to have some degree of understanding of Buddhism and Jodo Shinshu. And that's why I think, Buddhist education is so important at the local, district, and national levels. And even during this pandemic, uh, these online lectures and opportunities to listen have been so well attended in Hawaii and in the BCA and at the local level as well. So we have to have some degree of understanding. We have to put some time into it to learn what is Buddhism and Jodo Shinshu. So devout Shin Buddhists like Saichi the Myokoning, they all had a history of deep listening and seeking of the Dharma. In most cases, many years of seeking. I can't recall the name of this particular Myokoning, but there was a Myokoning who became so frustrated with trying to understand Jodo Shinshu that this Myokoning nailed their Obutsudan shut for a certain time period because I don't understand what the Buddha is trying to teach me, but got beyond that level of frustration to become a very deep and profound Nimbutsu follower. So it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes deep listening. So now let's talk about relating Buddhism to everyday life. Having that sort of basic foundation of what is Buddhism, path to become Buddha, and that it's liberation from meaninglessness. Let's talk about our everyday life. And I'm going to just talk about 3 areas of our everyday life: life at work, life at play, and a life of okage-sama, a life due to others. So, first of all, relating Buddhism to our work life. So, living a fulfilled life at work. Now, maybe some of you are retired, but some of you are probably still working. Or those of you that are retired, you can think about what your work life was like. But living a meaningful life at work. And I'd like to share the story about the gyoza man at Osho's. This was one of our favorite restaurants when my wife and I lived in Japan when I was studying Buddhism there. It's called Osho's. It's a chain restaurant, and it's throughout Japan, but mainly in the Kyoto, Osaka area. It's so good, so good. Gyoza. The gyoza is the best, and it's quite inexpensive. I think when we were there, you could get an order of gyoza for like less than $2. Even now, it's probably maybe $3.50 or less than $4 for an order of gyoza. And chahan, or the fried rice, oh, it's so good. The best fried rice. And chicken karaage. So that's what we would order: fried rice, gyoza, chicken karaage when we went to Osho's. But besides the food, what I enjoyed the most about going to Osho's, we would go to one in our neighborhood, not too far away, was there was this man that made the gyoza. And it was like watching ballet. This man was so fluid, and every motion was almost like watching a dance. He would put the gyoza on the grill. He never dropped a gyoza. And then, so he's making the gyoza. He's running the cash register. So a customer has finished their meal. So he goes over there and he takes their money. and the gyoza's cooking on the grill. And then he knows just exactly when to go back over there and take the gyoza off the grill. It's never burned. It's always the perfect color. People will come in with takeout orders with their Tupperware containers, and he's filling out the orders, and he's taking the food to the people working at the counter. And he was such a joy to watch. And when people would come in, he welcomes them, and he serves the customer. I used to think, I wonder if there's any CEO of a major company that's any happier than this man who's making the gyoza. He seems so happy doing his job, so fulfilled. So fulfillment in work comes from inside of us, not necessarily from our paycheck. I don't think that that's that high of a paid job to make the gyoza at Osho's. But I would challenge any CEO to see if they're any happier or more fulfilled in their work than this man who made the gyoza. So fulfillment must come from inside of us, not necessarily from our paycheck. But it's okay to make a lot of money too. So make a lot of money and make a big donation to the Hawaii Kyodan. I'm sure they could use your donation. So we need a Bill Gates that's a Buddhist that can donate a lot to all of our Kyodans and for the propagation of Shin Buddhism. Reverend Kubose, the author of Everyday Suchness, he writes, "The true life is always creative and unfolds from within. Therefore, it is an art of life. One is an artist of life, whatever one's occupation is." So, Buddhism at work means being the artist of your job and letting it unfold from within, no matter what our occupation is, whether we're a chef, whether we're a school teacher, whether we're an engineer, whether we're a farmer, whether we're a minister. We ministers too. We have to be the artist of our life. It has to come from within us. See? So I think Buddhism shows us how to live a fulfilled life, at work. So now let's talk about Buddhism at play. Buddhism at play. This is my favorite place to play, Las Vegas. I haven't been there in over a year now. It's the longest I've gone without going to Las Vegas. Oh, doesn't this picture just make you long for Las Vegas? And how about this photo? The Cal. Everybody from Hawaii always stays at the Cal, right? The restaurant, the coffee shop, the Butterfish. Every time we go to Vegas, we have at least one night we'll go to the Cal, and I'll have either the Butterfish or the prime rib. And because with the prime rib, you get cherries Jubilee for dessert, right? So Las Vegas, wonderful place to play. But Las Vegas is one of the best places to experience Buddhism. You may not have thought of this, but it is one of the best places to experience Buddhism. Buddhism teaches us about the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. Las Vegas is the best place to not learn about these three poisons intellectually, but experientially, to learn about greed, anger, and ignorance. So we all like to go to Las Vegas because if we line up these 3 sevens, we win this big jackpot, 1,000 coins or $1,000 or whatever whatever machine you happen to be playing. But what happens is you get so close. You get 7, 7, 7. Oh, I just missed it just by one. Then you keep playing. Then you get 7, 7, 7. Now it's up here. It's just so close. I know it's going to hit. I know it's going to hit. So you keep putting more money into the slot machine because it's bound to hit sooner or later, but it doesn't hit. It doesn't hit. And you put a lot of money into the slot machine. And then you think to yourself, okay, I give up. I'm going to quit this machine. And you turn and you walk away. But as you walk away, you look back at that machine that you're playing. So the number one rule in Las Vegas is if you leave a machine, never look back. Never look back at that machine. Because if you look back at that machine, what happens is some little old lady will walk up to the machine that you were playing for maybe 2 hours. And the little old lady will put in her money and first pull, cha-ching, she lines up the 3 sevens. And you think to yourself, that lady, she hit my jackpot, my jackpot. I was priming that machine for her. Now you're greedy, you're angry, and you're stupid all at the same time. All 3 poisons, all in that one experience. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you've felt that way when you've gone to Las Vegas. So I always tell people, at least a couple times a year, I have to go to Las Vegas to really experience Buddhism. So our anger, one of the 3 poisons. Buddhism doesn't say that a Buddha never gets angry. But for an awakened person, their anger doesn't last long. That's the difference between a Buddha and an unenlightened person. Just that their anger doesn't last long. An awakened person feels that anger, it comes up, and then they are able to let it go right away. But an unenlightened person, we hold on to our anger days, weeks, months, even years. For years, we can hold on to our anger. I'd like to share a personal story of holding on to anger. As a minister, you really try to avoid having an argument with one of your members. Over the 30 something years I've been a minister, I can count on one hand how many times I've had an argument with a member. But sometimes it's inevitable. You feel like you have to sort of defend your viewpoint or your position. And so some years ago, I had an argument with a member. He said this, I said that. He said this in response. I wanted to say this in response, but I held it back. I didn't say it. So we had this sort of we have to call it was an argument. Well, some years later, I was taking a shower at home. And at our home, my wife made this rule. After you take a shower, you have to take this plastic squeegee and you have to wipe the shower stall. Otherwise, the hard water film kind of builds up. So that's the rule in our house. So I'm taking this shower, and I don't know what made me think of it, but I'm recalling this argument that I had with this member. I'm reliving it word by word. He said this, I said that. And as I'm recalling this argument with this member, I'm starting to squeegee the shower stall. But I'm squeegeeing it like this as a I squeegeed so hard, the plastic squeegee snapped in two in my hand. And then I thought to myself, what is the matter with me? What is the matter with me? And I'm trying to recall when that argument was. It was easily over 10 years prior, maybe closer to 15 years prior. But it was like it happened yesterday. So we have some people from Vista, and I've shared this story at the Vista Temple before. And I remember once I shared this story, and about 2 months later, it was my turn again to speak at the Vista Temple. And a Vista member after the service said, "Oh, Sensei, I have a gift for you. I made something for you." I go, "Oh, really? Oh, what is it?" I was very curious to see. And this is what this member from Vista gave to me. I hope you can see it. So it's a plastic squeegee and he framed it. And it says, just in case I need a new squeegee. So it's quite a cherished gift, a reminder of my own anger and how I hold on to it. So now at our home, we have a pretty durable squeegee. I don't think I'll ever break this one, but who knows if I get angry enough. So the difference between a Buddha and us is that we hold on to our anger. In Japan, I studied under Professor Shigaragi, and he always had these wonderful stories about members that he knew. And so he shared once a story about an elderly man from his temple. And this man was walking through a rice paddy, and some mischievous boys hid in the bushes, and they came up and they pushed the man into the muddy rice paddy. And then they ran away and they thought it was so funny. Well, years later, one of the boys got a very guilty conscience about what he had done. And now he's much older. And he went up to that man and he said, years ago, some boys pushed you into the muddy rice paddy. And I was one of those boys. And I want to apologize for what we did. It's been sort of eating at me all these years. And the elderly man says, "Oh, is that right?" And then the young man said, "I've always wondered all these years, why didn't you get mad? Why didn't you chase after us? Why didn't you try to tell our parents what we had done?" And the elderly man said, "Oh, I got mad. But then I heard the voice of the Buddha saying to me, 'They're just boys. Let it go. Let it go.'" Now, this elderly man didn't literally hear the Buddha saying this to him, but his understanding of Buddha Dharma, it was like the Buddha was saying to him, his anger came up, "Let it go. Let it go." That's the difference between an awakened person and an unawakened person. Now, it doesn't mean that we should condone those kind of terrible things that young people might do to an older person. But the example is to illustrate how an awakened person doesn't hold on to their anger. They're able to let it go. Thich Nhat Hanh, the wonderful Vietnamese Buddhist master, he says that when we get angry, we want to chase after the person who caused our anger. But that is like chasing after the arsonist who started the fire. Instead, we should put out the fire. So when we get angry, we want to get back at that person that's causing us our anger. When that's like going after the arsonist who set the fire. Instead, you should try to put out the fire in your house. And that's what he's saying. We should address the anger within us instead of trying to go after the person that we think caused our anger. Ignorance, the third of the three poisons. I think the majority of the social issues today are all a result of human ignorance. The prejudice, the discrimination, the hatred, the acts of violence, that we're seeing against Asians and that we've seen in throughout our society and throughout the world, it's all stems from ignorance in a person, in an unawakened person. So ignorance of the interdependent oneness of life, ignorance of oneself, and ignorance of the destructive nature of the three poisons. And that's why Buddhism has so much to offer the world today, because we see so many manifestations of that ignorance playing out in our world today. Chocolate chip cookies. This is Thich Nhat Hanh's wonderful metaphor. So Thich Nhat Hanh has a wonderful way of explaining this oneness of life by talking about chocolate chip cookies. He says, when we make chocolate chip cookies, we make the batter, we put the butter and sugar and flour and eggs and all the ingredients into the batter. We mix up the batter, and when we spoon it out onto the cookie sheet to make these cookies. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, well, but what if, as we're baking the cookies begin to think, I am the perfect cookie. I'm the perfect color. I'm just the right color. That one over there is too dark. That one is too light. I am the perfect cookie. That's absurd, right? Because the cookies all came from the same batter. So it's absurd for one cookie to think that it's better than the others. But, oops. So that's what Thich Nhat Hanh, through this cookie example, is trying to show us. Our true essence is that of a oneness. We're all one humanity. We're all one humanity. How can we look at other divisions or other races as superior or inferior than us? We're all of the same essence. So to live our true and sincere life is to live our life as if we are at play. Let's return to this Buddhism at play. So there's the larger sutra that Shin Buddhism is based on, and there's an interesting character in this character for to play, or asobu. And in the larger sutra, there's a passage that talks about the Buddha doing his work of saving sentient beings, and instead of the character for work, they use this character for play. So at first, I thought it was a mistake. Shouldn't it be the character for work or duty instead of play? But I think the composers of the sutra intentionally use the character for play, because the meaning is that for the Buddha, work is like play. It is a joy. It is not drudgery. So we should go about our work as if it is play. Now I'd like to talk about the third aspect of Buddhism in everyday life, and that's the life of okage-sama, a life due to others. I'm sure you've heard this term, okage-sama, but I like to think of it in these terms. On our farm in Oregon, we used to raise cattle too. We mainly had onions and potatoes, but we had about 100 head of cattle. Did you know that an average American consumes 9.8 steers in their lifetime? Like the steer that was just shown. In our lifetime, we consume about 9.8 steers. These are happy little pigs. An average American consumes 28 pigs in their lifetime. Where do you think bacon comes from? Comes from pigs. Oh, I love bacon. Pork chops. Kahlua pork. Wow. Or chashu. Who doesn't like chashu? Well, it all comes from a living pig that gave its life for me. And in my lifetime, I will consume about 28 pigs. Chickens. Who doesn't like chicken? Chicken salad, teriyaki chicken, chicken karaage, roast chicken. An average American consumes 2,002 chickens in their lifetime. And maybe some more than others. If you maybe don't eat so much beef, maybe you eat more chicken. Fish. Look at this tuna. Sashimi. The sashimi that we enjoy was this magnificent tuna. An average American consumes around 3,700 fish in their lifetime. Well, you might say, well, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. I don't eat fish. I just eat vegetables. Well, you don't think that this carrot was a living thing? The carrot was perfectly happy growing in the ground, and then it got yanked out of the ground, and its life was taken to be your soup or your salad. Then someone might say, well, I don't even eat vegetables. All I eat are grains, like seeds. That way I'm not taking life. You're still taking life. The sunflower seed that you eat never got to become a sunflower, right? So you're still taking life. It's impossible to live without taking life. That's what we mean by Okage-sama. I want to talk about Mr. Steer. I wrote an essay about Mr. Steer. Let's imagine that out of those 9.8 steers that I might consume in my lifetime, let's say Mr. Steer asks before his life is taken, well, I'd like to know, who am I going to? I mean, who is going to be consuming me as a rib steak or hamburger? And they said, oh, well, Mr. Steer, we see that you are set to be a ribeye steak for a Reverend Harada. Oh, tell me something about Reverend Harada. Well, he's a Buddhist minister. He's a Buddhist minister. I thought Buddhist ministers were vegetarian. Oh no, not this minister. He likes to, one of his favorite foods is ribeye steak. What else can you tell me about Reverend Harada? Well, he likes to golf. He likes to golf. And he loves Las Vegas. Las Vegas? He's a Buddhist minister. He loves Las Vegas? Oh, I mean, can't I give my life for someone a little bit more noble than that? You know, like someone who's going to find the cure for cancer, or an engineer that's going to find a cure for the energy crisis. Can't I go to someone like that? No, I'm sorry, Mr. Steer. You're destined to become ribeye steak for a Reverend Harada. Oh, I sure hope that guy appreciates and feels worthy of my sacrifice. This is one of my favorite movies, Saving Private Ryan. For those of you that haven't seen the movie, of course, starring Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks plays Captain Jim Miller, and he and his group of soldiers, they're on a mission to find Private Ryan, Private James Francis Ryan. Private Ryan has already lost 3 of his brothers in the war, and he's the last remaining brother. And so the army decides to find and save Private Ryan from this war so that his mother will not have to get a 4th notification of a son being killed in action. And so they go on this journey to try to find Private Ryan, and they find him. And when they find him, he's with his fellow soldiers, and they're trying to protect this bridge that's a prime property for the German army. And they decide to stay and help Private Ryan and his group of soldiers to defend the bridge. And the final scene, such a powerful, touching scene. Tom Hanks has been wounded. He's dying. And he says to Private Ryan, he says the following words. He says, earn it. Earn it. Meaning these other soldiers died to try to save you. So you better live your life in a manner that earns the sacrifice of others. Well, don't you think all those steers and pigs and chickens and fish and carrots and sunflower seeds, don't you think they could ask us the same question? We've given our life for you. Earn it. Earn it. I think that's what a life of Okage-sama means, that we have this sense of awareness of all that life is being sacrificed to sustain and support our life. So we have to earn it by how we live, and how we appreciate it. This is a poem by a very devout Shin Buddhist by the name of Kimura Muso. And it goes as follows. On the shelf of my kitchen sits onions and radishes and carrots lined up waiting their turn backstage, all for a foolish being like me. So Kimura Muso has a sense of awareness of this life of Okage-sama, that all these vegetables are going to become his food, giving their lives for a foolish being like me. So Okage-sama, a life of gratitude for all that enables us to live our life, the lives that sustain our lives. So to come to a conclusion for my first part of my presentation, Buddhism is all around us in our everyday life. If we have the eyes to see it, if we have the ears to hear it, and if we have the heart and mind to receive it. Nam mandavas, nam mandavas, nam mandavas. So that's the conclusion of my formal part of my presentation, and I believe I'll turn it back over to Piper.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop Harada. That was thought-provoking, and I think it offers us an opportunity for some reflection every day. Thank you very much. So now we will take a 5-minute break before we get into the Q&A session. So let's take this time for SSBB, stretch, snack, bathroom break. And we'll return in about 5 minutes. The first part of the Q&A section, all participants will be muted. And then when we get into the Q&A section where we're taking questions from the floor, then you raise your hand and unmute, okay? What we'll do now is we'll begin the Q&A session with questions that were pre-submitted. And I will read the question, and Bishop will then respond to it, and he has some PowerPoint to accompany his responses. So yeah. Let me begin with the first question. Bishop, what is the best way to remind myself to say Namo Amida Butsu more often?
So my response would be, I don't think you have to be too concerned about how many times a day you say it, but I would be more concerned about the nembutsu that does come from you, whether it comes from, deep from your heart and mind. but it doesn't always come deep from within your heart or mind. Sometimes it's just a very casual namandavas, namandavas. Sometimes it has a more depth to it, but you don't have to be concerned like, gee, I don't say it too much during the day. I should say it more. I would rather see it kind of emerge naturally from you. But I think, especially for beginners who are not comfortable with saying it, that it helps to say the Nembutsu, and then it begins to kind of emerge from your life. Okay, next question.
Okay. Next question is, in a relationship between two people, a relationship that is moving towards possible marriage for both individuals, how much discord or lack of harmony might one expect for that couple if one is Buddhist and the other non-Buddhist, such as Christian, Catholic, or even an atheist?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is an excellent question. By the way, all the questions submitted were excellent, and they all reflected, something that you are thinking or feeling in your own life. So I would say that, marriage means to overcome, many hurdles and issues. Couples have to decide whether they're going to have children or not, where they're going to live. Maybe it involves the interests and the hobbies that they pursue or their professions. And another factor is, of course, religion. But I know many interfaith couples over the years that have attended OCBC. I've had couples where the wife was a devout Catholic and the husband was a Buddhist. And every Saturday night they went to their wife's Catholic Mass. And then every Sunday they went to the husband's Buddhist service at OCBC. So we can have interfaith marriages as long as each respects each other's religion and the pursuit of each other's own religion, I would say. Next question.
Okay. Next question. How can Shin Buddhists support American democracy? What can we do to heal the divisions in our country and support unity in the United States?
Oh, this is a good question. Let's go to the next question. No. So my response is, Shin Buddhism teaches us or awakens us to a truth that really transcends political divisions, transcends racial divisions, transcends gender divisions, sexual orientation divisions. So it's, at its deepest point, the Dharma and Shin Buddhism goes beyond all these distinctions or divisions. But at the same time, in our own Sangha, we might have individuals with quite opposite views. And as best as possible, we should respect each other's views. And as a Sangha, be able to have a Sangha in which we have people with various backgrounds, various viewpoints, even political viewpoints. Mm-hmm. Next question.
Okay. Next question. Why is there no reference to a God in Buddhist teachings?
Oh, I guess I had another slide for that last one too. Okay, why is there no reference to a God in the Buddhist teaching? So Shakyamuni Buddha did not deny the existence of a God, but he did not teach belief or faith in a God as part of his teaching. He taught the Dharma, or the truth of enlightenment, or wisdom and compassion. So that's why we don't have God like in the Judeo-Christian sense of God. But in Indian culture, there were various gods and deities that were part of the Indian culture. So you see references to gods in Buddhist texts and Buddhist sutras, but it's talking about it in this Indian culture context. Hinduism gods and things like that, but not quite like in our Western culture of an omnipotent God that created the world, that judges man. Okay, next question.
Let me make a comment on that. So if the Buddha did not deny the existence, he also, in his silence, left open the door for someone to believe in a God and be a Buddhist at the same time?
I think so. I think so. One of our newest BCA individual members is a man who lives in Colorado that I've gotten to know. He's a retired United Church of Christ minister, but he's been fond of Buddhism for like 20 years. And in his sermons at his Christian church, he would bring in sort of Buddhist teachings and concepts. And he said that his congregation loved it. And he still listens to and learns about Buddhism, although I believe he remains as a Christian.
Well, Bishop, you have a very enlightened view. Thank you very much. Next question. Is there anything in Buddhist teachings that guide us in actively responding to the pandemic?
Yes, boy, this has been so terrible, this pandemic. So I would say, first of all, the teaching of impermanence, that this pandemic will not last forever. But it's going on too long for most of us, I think we would all say. But it's not going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever. Terrible political regimes don't last forever. Your daughter is going to become a young woman someday. And sadly, we have to part with our loved ones as well. So first of all, the teaching of impermanence. And so I think that we should become one with it, meaning this pandemic, instead of fighting against it. So we have to just adopt the pandemic lifestyle, which I think most of you are doing, wearing a mask, keeping your distance, washing your hands. And that way we're all doing our part to help end and shorten the pandemic. That would be my sort of Buddhist approach to it. Next question.
Thank you. There is a growing mainstream interest in mindfulness and meditation. And this questioner says, has found it therapeutic. Although they are not Pure Land Buddhist practices, can we incorporate these in our Dharma practices to attract newcomers while keeping true to Shin Buddhism and the idea of Nembutsu?
Yes, this is an excellent question. And mindfulness is so popular now, but people don't realize this whole mindfulness movement, it originates from Buddhism. Right mindfulness, one of the Eightfold Path, right mindfulness. This is how you write mindfulness, shonen. Look at the Chinese character. This is the nen of Nembutsu. I mean, I don't know how much closer our Shin Buddhist teachings can be to mindfulness than this. Mindfulness in Buddhism is the nen of Nembutsu. So mindfulness is an integral part of the Nembutsu path. So we have to show how for Shin Buddhists, mindfulness it's there from the beginning, and how to sort of reach those who are interested in mindfulness and meditation and introduce them to Shin Buddhism. That's our real challenge now for the future. Next question.
One comment about the mindfulness
Yes.
is that at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center, mindfulness was introduced as a way, as a therapy for dealing with pain and other kinds of physical ailments. And the person who developed that was a Buddhist. But what he did was he changed the language of mindfulness so that it became acceptable in the mainstream.
I see.
And then it lost its connection with Buddhism.
Right.
But he was a Buddhist and he recognized that. So, yes, mindfulness is definitely part of the Buddhist path. Next question. How can we make Buddhism's message more appealing, especially to those who don't know anything about our religion?
Oh, I had another slide on meditation, but okay. How can we make Buddhism more appealing? So I think we should bring out to the forefront what Shin Buddhism offers, that it's a teaching that embraces all, that we are family-friendly Buddhism. You know, if you are in Zen Buddhism and you have a 5-year-old, you can't take your 5-year-old to do Zazen at the Zen temple. We are family-friendly Buddhism, and we don't require any kind of certain lifestyle, like you have to be a vegetarian or You have to live a monastic lifestyle, and it's applicable to everyday life. So I think we have to bring those out more into the forefront. And like I've said before, show the practical side of Shin Buddhism that will be attractive to people who are looking for this practical dimension of Buddhism initially, and then lead them to a deeper truth understanding level. Next question.
Okay. I know this question, you probably could write a book on it, but you have only a few seconds here. During your Dharma talks, how do you explain Amida?
Oh, okay. Uh-huh. This is an excellent question, and one that I think many people have over the years. So when I was young, that was really a source of confusion for me in my younger years, how to understand what is Amida Buddha. I could understand the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, but the way Amida was presented, it was very confusing because it sounded like God or something. And I couldn't quite relate to it in that way. But over the years, came to see that there are other Shin Buddhist ministers that were presenting it in quite unique ways, like Reverend Kubose. So I often explain that Amida is the timeless Buddha, or as the heart of Shakyamuni Buddha. You know, Shakyamuni Buddha was a historical person, but his heart of enlightenment, that is timeless. And so that timeless heart of Buddha is Amida Buddha, which is great wisdom and great compassion. Amida Buddha, I think I have another slide. Yeah, Amida Buddha is a combination of two Sanskrit words that are translated as immeasurable life and immeasurable light. So it's the light of the Dharma, or the light of Namo Amida Butsu, that illuminates our hearts and minds. And it's our true and real life. That is immeasurable life. That is Amida, measurable light and immeasurable light. Next question.
Okay. Let me clarify one thing.
Yes.
From what you just said, then the way you look at Amida is that Amida is truly a part of our life. It's part of us.
Yes. 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 So we have to come to listening to the teachings, listening to the Dharma is to discover that light that illuminates our hearts and minds within us. It's to discover the true essence of our life that is within us too. But sometimes that realization comes from outside, not from a being, but it comes from learning and listening to the teachings, to the Dharma. We can't kind of turn on that light within us ourselves, you know. Oh, I'm going to turn on this light of the Dharma now. You know, no, it comes from listening and learning, and then that light is ignited or illuminated.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Next question.
Mhm.
What role does Namo Amida Butsu play in everyday life?
So I think it plays a vital role. It's the source of our awakening. It's the source of our transformation, going from a life of meaninglessness to a life of meaning and fulfillment. It's a source of spiritual strength when we face great adversity. And it's the mirror that allows us to see ourselves. So if we don't have a mirror to see ourselves, we cannot see our greed, our anger, our ignorance. And so that's why Namo Amida Butsu, the teachings play such a vital role. I think that, yeah. Next question.
Okay. Next question. The questioner says, I have your book and have recommended to others via my Project Dana newsletter article. It's a great book. Do you have any new Buddhist insights now that you are bishop?
Well, sorry to say, becoming bishop didn't give me great new insights. I'm still the same old me. But I would say that, you know, I'm quite impressed with some of the new people that we are reaching virtually through online lectures, Dharma talks, and videos. And some of these individuals have had real chance encounters with maybe a book on Jodo Shinshu, or watching a video talk or a lecture. There's a young man in Europe who encountered Jodo Shinshu through Dr. Alfred Bloom, his writings, and I believe some of his Dharma talks that were recorded. That's how this individual met Shin Buddhism. So I've been quite impressed with that.
Okay.
I think was on
Can
this.
you share Jodo Shinshu perspectives on aging as a spiritual religious practice?
Yes, this is another excellent question. So I would say that age can often bring maturity and wisdom as one grows older, but it's not a guarantee either that age itself is going to make us spiritually deeper. So don't think, well, I don't have to listen too intently because as I grow older, I'm just going to get it naturally with age. I don't think you could necessarily say that. And so, but that is the beauty of Shin Buddhism in that it is a path for all ages. So young people learn from the wisdom and life experience of older members, but older members, we learn from the enthusiasm, the spontaneity, and freshness that young people offer. That's why I really like the family service rather than separating the Dharma school service from the adult service. At Orange County, we had a family service, all ages together, and the young people, they're there with grandma and grandpa, and then the older people can get the joy of seeing the young children every Sunday. So we're of all ages. That's the beauty of Shin Buddhism. Next question.
Comment on the last question. I've always thought that getting old is mendokusai, just something I got to put up with. But now with this question,
Yeah.
I'm engaged in a spiritual religious practice.
Mm.
How wonderful it is to get old. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
whoever asked that question, thank you very much for that new perspective on getting old. Okay. Next question. What is the best way to feel deep reverence for the Nembutsu when I say it throughout the day?
Yes, kind of similar to the question we had a little bit earlier. And so I want to share this poem by Saichi the Miyokoni. He says, perfectly indifferent I am, no joy, no gratefulness, yet no grief over the absence of absence of gratefulness. So see, for Saichi, the Nembutsu is one with his life. So it's not like he's intensely grateful 24 hours a day. He's sometimes it's just a very simple Nammon Dabutsu. At other times, it's this very deep and profound Nammon Dabutsu. But he doesn't feel like, oh gee, I haven't felt very grateful for the Nembutsu today. He doesn't feel grief over the absence of gratefulness. So I thought this poem kind of fit that question. Next question.
I like that concept because many of us go through daily lives beating ourselves up because we're not good people, we're not grateful, and this and that.
Uh-huh.
But this puts it into perspective. I really like that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What does Shinran's teaching say about disappointment?
Yes, I've never had this question before. And so I probably should go back and read and look at Shinran's writings. But, oops, I would say I don't think he makes statements like "I'm disappointed in you," uh, nor does he express disappointment in himself. But he does lament and is just brutally honest about himself and his ego self. For example, this is one of his poems. Although I take refuge in the true Pure Land way, it is hard to have a true and sincere mind. This self is false and insincere. I completely lack a pure mind. So you might think, well, he's kind of hard on himself. Isn't that a little bit being too harsh on himself? But you have to understand that he's seeing his ego self and revealing his ego self. But he's only able to do that because the light of the Dharma is showing him his ego self. So both are occurring at the same time. As he is expressing his faults and insincerity, his ego self, it means the presence of the light of the Dharma, or you could say the presence of his true self. That is what enables him to see his ego self. I hope that responds to it. Next question.
Okay. This has to do with a little bit of technology here. How
Uh-huh.
important or effective would you say a website is for communicating with people? And are there other methods you might recommend for a temple to improve communications?
Uh-huh. So first of all, the website is very important. That's one of the most important things that we should have. And at OCBC, my experience was that most new people came to us via the website. If a new person came, often I would ask them, well, gee, how did you happen to attend our service today? Oh, I went to the website. It looked kind of interesting. And so I decided to come. So the website is the gateway for people to come. YouTube videos are important. Somehow we need to increase our videos somehow. I happened to go on YouTube. I saw that there was a Tibetan Buddhist meditation video. It had 23 million views. 23 million views. One of my Dharma Talk videos gets maybe 300 views. 3 million. Oh, and all it was nice scenery and a Tibetan gong, and there wasn't much to it, but 23 million views. Okay. Oh, let's see. I think I had one more slide. Oh, but when new people do come to our temples, like via the site, if we're not warm and welcoming, they won't come back. So a nice website alone will not grow our temples. We have to be the real thing too. And so the new person has to feel something from the Sangha that makes them think, I want to be a part of this. I want to be around these people. Okay, next question.
Very good point. Your last slide. During the pandemic, we have limited interpersonal contact and communications with other Sangha members. How do you keep the bonds between Sangha members in a temple from breaking during these times?
This has been a real challenge for all temples, large and small. Uh, to give some examples from OCBC, they had an event called Sangha Strong, to kind of affirm that we are a strong Sangha. We're going to make it through this. And it involved picking up a bento. There was a Zoom social, and then we played games by Zoom, and people were able to reconnect with each other. In the BCA, we started this Dial the Dharma phone message program for people who don't use a computer. We know many of our members don't use a computer. So there's an 800 number they can call 24 hours a day, and they can listen to a short 5-minute Dharma message by me in English or in Japanese by one of our Japanese speaking ministers. I think, and then also like at OCBC, they're doing crafts, ukulele, all of that by Zoom. The Fujinka or the BWA, they're having meetings by Zoom, and they're doing Zoom socials. And some temples have phone tree lists, and people are just calling the homebound members. Hey, how are you doing? How are you managing through all this? And is there anything we can do to help you? So many temples are making the effort to try to stay connected with the members. But I know it's a challenge. It's been a most challenging year. Next question.
Thank you. Here's a personal one.
Yeah.
Do you pray?
Oh, okay. Well, I think this, especially a new person that might come from the Judeo-Christian tradition, might have this very fundamental question. So, only in Las Vegas do I pray. Well, all kidding aside, we don't pray like in the Judeo-Christian tradition, but we can have our own hopes and aspirations. For example, we can have the hope and aspiration for a world of peace and tranquility. We have a relative or a friend that's deathly ill, and we can send forth warm thoughts, encouraging thoughts for their recovery, but we're not praying to the Buddha, oh, please cure me from my cancer, please help me get a raise, or that kind of thing. We don't pray in that sense. Okay.
Okay. Next question. I've heard folks criticize our charitable efforts as expressions of self-power, while others say that such efforts demonstrate Amita's compassion flowing through us. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a very interesting question. I've never sort of heard presented in quite this manner. So, first of all, charitable giving, or dana, is noble, and it's the first of the paramitas, the 6 paramitas. Without dana, we can't operate our temples or kyodan. There's no way. So dana is a crucial part of our Buddhist experience. So dana can be viewed as self-power. If the person thinks, well, I'm making a big donation, so I'm going to get a free pass to the Pure Land, or that I have earned my name on the Kyodan Hall of Fame, then your dana is, in a sense, sort of a little bit tainted, I guess. But even if we can't selflessly give, we should still practice giving. We could rationalize our giving as the workings of Amita's compassion, but maybe we have ulterior motives. Maybe we're giving because we want the tax deduction. And so we should be careful not to say that things are the workings of Amita's compassion to sort of validate our good acts. So it all depends on our state of mind as we go about our giving.
Okay.
I think next question.
Okay. What is a healthy Buddhist approach to dealing with the guilt for distancing oneself from an unbalanced family member who really needs help on a regular basis, but is challenging to deal with? So how does one take care of oneself in this situation?
Uh, boy, I really like to thank this person for offering a question that is from your life, that you're experiencing. And, honestly, I don't know how you do it, but we have to maintain our own health and well-being, or we cannot help our own family member or others. So you have to kind of know the limits of what you can do and still be able to maintain your sanity and well-being. And if it approaches, if the demands of caring for another family member is threatening your own sanity and well-being, then you have to sort of draw the line. And this is all I can do. I'm doing all I can do uh, without jeopardizing your own health and well-being. That's what I would say. I think that was the only slide I had for that. Yeah, yeah.
So you're saying that what we have to do in this situation is we have to know our own limits.
Our own limits, yes, and not feel guilty about that
Hmm.
as well. You're doing all that you can, and you really cannot give any more.
Hmm.
Of course, you can go too far the other way and say, no, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do anything, and we don't want to be sort of in a sense cold and heartless. But at the same time, for someone, it sounds like they're really trying, but how do I deal with this? It's overwhelming. Well, you have to also know, the limits of what you can do.
Okay. Here's a sort of related one.
Yes.
For many of us who are retired seniors, everyday life sometimes involves caring for a loved one. How can we apply or incorporate Buddhism into our everyday lives um, for our loved ones? The reality is we easily run out of kindness, patience, and compassion in our daily words and actions. Your advice is sincerely appreciated.
Let's see. Was this the? I wonder if No. And I'm not quite sure if my response is to that one. I might have gotten the order slightly wrong, but let me just, well, let's see. Uh, I think it's similar to the one we just discussed, but many of you might be caring for. Did this question mention dementia and Alzheimer's? Is that the one?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, okay, okay. It might come up again, and maybe I have the order wrong because
Oh,
so anyway, I would say that yes, many people have to face caring for a spouse or a loved one. Uh, the last 3 or 4 years of my in-laws' life, my mother-in-law had dementia, and she'd been married to her husband, my father-in-law, for like 70 years, but had gotten to the point where she didn't, even know her own husband. And so that's so sad. That's so sad to see that. But no different than physical illness. We have to accept the reality and live with that reality. So, in a similar manner, I think we have to know the limits of our own patience and what we can do and maintain your own health and well being as you care for your loved one.
mhm.
Uh,
And so this question that you have on the board now,
yeah.
how has Buddhism helped people in this pandemic regarding emotional stress of job loss, loss of loved ones,
Uh-huh.
depression?
Okay. So I wanted to give this example of how last year we lost one of our members to COVID, and he was a young father of three daughters, high school and younger. And the daughter, the oldest daughter, this was how sort of she responded to the loss of her father. So one of their favorite family events every year was going to Obon, not only the OCBC Obon, but all the local Obons. And that was something they did as a family. And so because of COVID, we had to cancel Obon. There was no Obon anywhere within in Southern California. And so this young high school age girl who had lost her father, she was so disappointed that of all years, this year would have been so meaningful for her to go to Obon to remember her father, but we had no Obon. So what she did was she organized our junior YBA to create a virtual sort of Obon at home. And the young people, they made videos on how to make some of the Obon foods, how to make some of the crafts for children, how to do some of the dances. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful event. So she kind of made the best of the situation. Although she had lost her father, she created this first ever sort of virtual Obon. Next question.
What is the Buddhist perspective of capitalism? Can Buddhism and capitalism coexist?
So, and my response is there. I think so. I think Buddhism and capitalism can coexist. So the question is, what are you going to do with the millions that you make? So, sharing your wealth is more fulfilling than keeping it all to yourself. So, if you make a lot of money, like I said, make a big donation to the Kyodan. uh, look at Mr. Eihan Numata, who was a wealthy individual in Japan, but he was a devout Buddhist. He used all of his company's profits for the propagation of Buddhism and the teaching of Buddha books that are in hotels. That was all funded by Mr. Numata. The translation of the Buddhist sutras and texts has been funded by Mr. Numata. So there's a lot of wonderful things a person could do with the money that they make rather than buying a humongous mansion and Ferrari, and even though those are nice too. Next question.
Okay. Next question. Is there a concept like the devil in Buddhism?
Yes, I'd like to thank this person for raising this question so I could explain our view of hell in Buddhism. So in hell and there is hell in Buddhism, but it's meant to be taken metaphorically, not literally. But the descriptions of hell are quite graphic. There's actually 16 different hells. There's hot hells and there's cold hells. And some of the punishments in these hells are quite gruesome. But it's all illustrating sort of human suffering. So Reverend Haya Akagarasu, a wonderful Jodo Shinshu minister, Higashi Honganji minister, I like to share his interpretations, explanation of hell. So Reverend Akagarasu says there's three kinds of being in hell. There's the victim, there's the judge, and their punisher. So when you fall into hell, this judge says, okay, the karma on your life, you've done these terrible things, so you're going to get these punishments. So you're going to be punished by these terrible things by the punisher. So Reverend Akagasu says, at various points in our life, we can be any one of the three victims of beings of hell. We can be the victim, or we can be the judge, or we can be the punisher. And think about it. Sometimes we feel like we're the victim. Oh, woe is me! These terrible things happen to me, and other people at work have done these terrible things to me, and we feel like the victim. Sometimes we feel like we're the judge, and we're judging the world. Oh, this guy's bad. This guy's good. We're the judge, and sometimes we're even the punisher. I'm going to get back at that guy. I'm never going to speak to them again, or something like that. Sometimes we're the punisher. So when we take Buddhist teaching of hell, when we take it metaphorically, it's tremendous teaching to us. And Saichi the Myokoni, he has this poem. I am not to go to Jigoku, hell. Jigoku, hell, is right here. We are living right in Jigoku. Jigoku is no other place than this. Saichi sees his own life as sometimes Jigoku or hell. And I'd like to share briefly about an OCBC member, Junji Sarashina. He's a Hiroshima atomic bomb survivor. And one time I was having a conversation with him, and he was telling me, he says, Sensei, I don't really believe in hell, in an afterlife, because I've seen hell with my own eyes. That day in Hiroshima, he said, there can be no other hell worse than what I saw that day in Hiroshima. I mean, we can't even comprehend the horrendous things that he saw that day in Hiroshima. And so Junji says, I don't believe in hell and an afterlife. I've seen it with my own eyes. Then he also says, if I can see hell with my own eyes, why can't I see the Pure Land with my own eyes? And he says, sometimes I'm having dinner with my family and my granddaughters are there. And to me, that's the Pure Land. He's savoring this dinner, this time with his family and grandchildren. So I think we can talk about the Pure Land and hell metaphorically with more meaning than if we talk about it in terms of an afterlife. Next question.
Okay.
Oh, this is the one that we respond.
Oh, do you want to do this one now?
I think. Well, okay. Let me just go over the. I just wanted to mention small compassion versus great compassion. So our human compassion is small compassion. We can only do so much. We only have so much patience and understanding. But the heart of the Buddha is great compassion, unbounded and immeasurable. So when we reach the limits of our human small compassion, then all we can do is open our hearts and minds to receive the heart of the Buddha, which is great compassion. And then we find a way to keep going, to keep helping our loved one. I think that answers that question.
So basically, when we're taking care of caregiving to a loved one,
Uh-huh.
and we run out of kindness, patience, and compassion, then all we have is namandab, namandab.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay.
And
Thank
that helps us to keep going, I think.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The next question is, how do we make Buddhism important to our children and grandchildren?
Uh-huh. So, it's a great challenge, and we all want the Dharma to be transmitted to our children and grandchildren. But I think all we can do is sincerely follow the path, value and treasure the Dharma ourselves. And in so doing, our children and grandchildren will see and learn from how we live. It's not so much that you got to tell your kids and grandkids, you got to go, you got to go to the church or you got to go to the temple. It's we sincerely follow it and live it, and then they will come to appreciate it. So, for example, my own grandfather, he never studied Buddhism or Jodo Shinshu, but my Nembutsu will never equate my grandfather's Nembutsu. It just seemed to come from his bone marrow almost, when he would say Namman Dabuts, Namman Dabuts, and when he would bow before the altar at the temple. So something about my grandfather's Nembutsu still sticks with me to this day. Next question.
Okay. And this is the last question.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm quite ready to accept whatever health challenges will cause my death. I would like to accept this inevitability without medical remediation other than being kept comfortable till the end. However, my husband is not ready to accept his own death in the same way, and neither am I ready to accept his demise in the same manner as I've chosen for myself for selfish reasons. How do I reconcile these conflicting ways of living? Namo Amida.
Yes, thank you for sharing that real life issue and challenge. So I think probably most of us would say it's harder to face the loss of our spouse than our own mortality. We can come to accept our own death, but we may not be able to accept the loss of a spouse or the loss of a child. And so I wanted to share another poem by Saichi. So Saichi writes, Saichi's heart, destined for death, when his end comes, is now made an immortal heart, is made into the Namu Amida Butsu. See, for Saichi, what is timeless is Namu Amida Butsu. He has received this Nembutsu as a timeless truth. So he's gone from the practical level to the truth level. And it's interesting. He doesn't say, when I die, I become immortal and I go to the Pure Land. No. He says, when I die, I become this immortal Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu is what is timeless. I think I have another slide. Yes. So to receive the Nembutsu, Namu Amida Butsu, in one's heart and mind means to receive a timeless truth that transcends life and death. So in that truth, we are always one with the hearts and minds of our loved ones and with the heart and mind of the Buddha. So maybe this is one way of allowing us to accept the loss of our loved one or the imminent loss of a loved one, even more than our own loss. When we lose our loved one, they are still one with us in this timeless truth of Namu Amida Butsu. I hope that is some help to this individual. Okay.
Thank you. Now, that brings us to the end of the pre-submitted questions.
I'll stop sharing and then I can see everyone in gallery view.
Okay.
And
the seminar will close this part of the seminar at 10:55. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes. So I figure we can take a couple of questions and then we'll close.
Okay.
Okay, I have one. Since it's about time, I'm gonna take the one that I see in the chat, and one I see there's a hand raised. So
Okay.
the first one in the chat is from Mr. Dave Atchison. It
Uh-huh.
says, "Wonderful presentation. Thank you, Bishop Harada. If I understand correctly, there is nothing we need to do to earn Amida's compassion or ultimate oneness with the Buddha. Is earning it different with the other life that has sacrificed for us? If there is a self-power element of earning, or is this more a way to describe how we will naturally live if we live in awareness of Okage Samade?"
Yes. So this question is referring to my use of Saving Private Ryan and earning it. So yes, you're correct in that we don't earn being embraced by Amida's compassion, but it takes effort to come to realize it. Okay, so that's not just going to be handed to you on a platter. It takes listening, reflecting, and living a life of Shin Buddhism to come to realize that we live in a world of oneness and we are embraced with great compassion. Then, by from that point, now we live a life of Okage-sama, and we are deeply grateful for everything that supports our life. And of course, we cannot repay all the sentient beings that support our life, but it makes us realize that we have to do something meaningful in our life to earn all that we have received. I hope that answers it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and there is a question, a hand raised
Yes, I see that.
in the gallery. Gail Okata, do you have a question?
Oh, okay. Maybe she.
I guess it's the hand raise of high. Okay, so I guess we do have like 2 minutes.
Yeah, one
So-
more question.
Yes.
Esther, did you want to ask a question? Oh, okay. Anyone from the floor? We can take one more question. Okay.
Oh, Piper, before we close,
Yes.
let me, David, if you could put into the chat my email address. It's real simple, just marvinharada@gmail.com, marvinharada@gmail.com. So if someone has a question they didn't get a chance to raise, feel free to send me an email and I'll try to write a response.
Okay. So we're right on schedule. I did a pretty good job, didn't I? Okay.
Great job.
Okay. We've
Gee,
come.
somebody got swell head today.
We've come to an end of a very interesting and very valuable and thought-provoking seminar. I want to close with 3 things. Okay. First, my thank you remarks, then the Nembutsu, and then announcements. So, thank you remarks. On behalf of all the attendees, I would like to thank Bishop Harada for his presentation. It was wonderful. You shared clear and practical ways of bringing the Dharma into our daily lives. The language you used, we all could understand, and thank you for that. I also thank the planners and organizers of this wonderful event who represent the Honolulu and Oahu Honganji Councils and the Office of Buddhist Education. To those who made generous donations to the seminar, thank you. The organizers want you to know that all donations received will be going to now. I think it is time to formally end this seminar with a Nembutsu. I again invite the good-looking and charming resident minister from Mililani, Reverend David Fujimoto, to close with a Nembutsu.
Let us put our hands together in Gasho. Amida's vow is a great torch in the long night of ignorance. Amida Buddha works tirelessly to save you without fail. Amida's vow is a great torch in the darkness of life. If we rely on the great torch, we'll be given a definite answer to the questions about life. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman.
Namo.
Thank you, Reverend Fujimoto. Now, all of you know that it is a rule that no Honganji function can officially end without announcements. So in keeping with this time-honored rule, here are the announcements. 1, a short evaluation will be emailed to all registered participants shortly after the seminar's conclusion. The planning committee would appreciate it if you would complete it. It will help greatly in bringing to you future seminars that respond to your needs. Second announcement. There was much shared today that bears a second viewing and a second hearing. With this in mind, please know that the recording of this seminar will be posted and emailed to all registered participants in about 2 weeks. Third announcement. For those who are looking for more seminars of this quality, check out the April virtual program sponsored by the Buddhist Churches of America and their Center for Buddhist Education. The April 10 session is on socially engaged Buddhism. And now listen to this one. On April 17, it will be 3 bishops discussing what is the future of Buddhism in the West. The participating bishops are Bishop Eric Matsumoto of Hawaii, Bishop Harada of the Buddhist Churches of America, and Bishop Aoki of Canada. I don't think there ever has been a gathering of 3 bishops discussing a topic of this importance and relevance. So this should be a good one. So anyone interested in attending this historical presentation can go to Buddhist Churches of America, no spaces, .org, and click on events to register. Also, the link and information to this event will be included in the evaluation email. So when you get that evaluation email, don't put it in your trash can. Respond to it and write down the link. Now that I've fulfilled the requirements of announcements, I am able to formally
so they can sit on the phone with you.
This seminar.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending. And with that, I say mahalo, arigato, ipe nipe debiru, and thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you very much.